Hi, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Jennifer Philippi, and I'm here with Stephen Petonic. Today, we want to discuss a long-time heated debate in the wrap-up insurance industry. Whether or not you should use the deduct or the alternate add method to remove insurance costs from a bid or a contract. The purpose of this presentation is to provide a brief overview of these two methods and give you some guidance on which method may be best suited for various circumstances. Before we dive in too deep, here's a quick background on insurance credits. When an owner, CM, GC, or other entity decides to implement a wrap-up insurance program, they become the sponsor of this program and take on the responsibility of providing on-site coverage to all enrolled contractors. In return, each contractor agrees to remove the charges from their bid and/or contract associated with those provided coverage. For example, if an owner is providing workers' compensation via an OSIP, then the contractors will not charge the owner for their own workers' compensation coverage. There are two methods to remove the insurance cost from the bid or the contract, a deduct or an alternate add. Let's begin by reviewing the definition of each method.
When a deduct is being used, all bid estimates and contract awards will be provided gross or inclusive of insurance cost. Each contractor will identify the charges included in the bid or contract for insurance. If the contractor is enrolled in the program, then these insurance charges will be removed or deducted from the contract, usually via a deductive change order.
On the other hand, if an alternate add is used, then the base bid and subsequent contract award is provided net of any insurance cost. These costs are then identified as an add alternate to the contract. Should the sponsor choose not to use the wrap-up or not to include this particular contractor in the wrap-up, then this amount will be added back to the contract in order for the contractor to provide their own insurance coverage.
There are others in the industry who refer to deducts and alternate adds as gross and net bids. The sponsor can require that all bids be submitted net, but may or may not require that the insurance cost be identified. The sponsor can request gross bids, then award the contract either gross or net of insurance cost. Similarly, the sponsor may require that the bids be submitted both gross and net, with the variance being the cost of insurance. It is important to be aware that this other terminology exists. However, for the purposes of our presentation, we will continue to reference alternate adds and deducts instead of gross and net bids.
This chart illustrates the mechanics of each method. Notice the difference between the deduct and the alternate add. The traditional contract column shows the general charges included in a contract if no wrap-up were in place. The next column depicts use of an alternate add. You can see there are no charges included for insurance. Not only does this reduce the total bid amount, but the amount of the overhead and profit charges are reduced as well. The final column illustrates the deduct method. The insurance charges are included, but when they are removed, the associated overhead and profit charges are removed from them as well. In this scenario, not only are we deducting the $935,000 in insurance costs, but we are also deducting 15% of $935,000 for overhead and profit from the bid. Theoretically speaking, each method should provide the same results, but as often the case, this doesn't always happen. Now that we have a working definition of each method, how do we know which method to use? In the wrap-up world, this is probably one of the most discussed and most debated questions. Everyone has their favorite, and there is no one right answer. Each method has its pros and its cons, and these pros and cons are dependent upon several variables. For instance, is the sponsor an owner or a general contractor? An owner may prefer the deduct method to ensure control over the insurance credits, while the GC or CM may opt for an alternate add for ease of administration. Where is the project being built? Some states and local governments may have restrictions in regards to construction bids and/or wrap-up insurance programs, which may dictate which method should be used. How competitive is the construction environment at the time of the bids? In a competitive environment, contractors are more likely to remove all of their insurance costs. How is the project being bought out? How does the cost of the wrap-up fit into the billing method? How much of the cost is at risk and needs to be offset by the credits received from the contractors? These are questions the GC and the owners need to ask themselves before deciding on a method. Finally, what is the sponsor's main motivation for purchasing the program? To save money, or is this a risk management tool? A sponsor who is intently focused on saving money will probably prefer the deduct method so that they can ensure all costs for insurance have been removed.
Deducts are more of an exact science than an alternate add. By reviewing contractors' insurance ratings pages, Calculating a credit based on these rates and issuing a deductive change order for this amount, the sponsor can be sure that the amount removed from the contract is at least equal to the amount that the contractor would have otherwise paid for his own insurance had the wrap-up not been in place. In addition, unless prohibited by state or local regulation, should the contractor's insurance credit increase either due to change in contract value or payroll, the sponsor can seek additional credit to make up for this variance. Thus, the deduct method is the most verifiable method for removing the insurance cost. With that said, determining the proper deduct amount involves real money for a contractor, the amount by which the contract will be reduced. Therefore, negotiations to decrease this amount can be difficult.
Now let's take a deeper look into the alternate add method. Since no insurance costs are included in the original bid or in the contract amount, no deductive change orders need to be issued to remove these costs, thus making the administration of these types of wrap-ups less burdensome. The negotiation of the appropriate alternate add amount is usually less confrontational than the negotiation of a deduct, since the insurance costs are not included in the bid or contract, thus no adjustment to the bid or contract is needed. While these aspects of the alternate add method make for somewhat smoother sailing, they also bring about some concerns regarding the insurance cost. Payroll has a direct impact on insurance costs. If the contractor utilizes more payroll than originally estimated, then it is difficult to go back and recoup these additional costs associated with this labor, as the insurance cost was never charged for in the first place. A capable wrap-up administrator can calculate a cost avoidance associated with payroll overages and/or change orders. However, since the contract will not be further reduced by these dollars, many sponsors have difficulty perceiving this amount as a real savings. So given that each method has its good and bad aspects, how does one determine which method to use? Over the years, we have been able to come up with some rules of thumb for which method might work best in various circumstances. This is by no means an all-encompassing list of every type of wrap-up scenario, nor is it intended to be written in stone. However, for the most part, we think this is how it works best. As mentioned earlier, there are several variables to consider when determining which method is right for your program. However, we feel the two most important factors in making this decision revolve around the program sponsor and project location. So the first question we ask, is this a CSIP or an OSIP? If this is a CSIP, we will talk about your course in a moment. If this is an OSIP, where is your project located? Are there any state or local regulations that will impact the way the project is bid and/or awarded? If so, an alternate add method may be the right or only choice for you. The next thing we would look at is the sponsor's primary motivation. Is the sponsor looking to save money? If so, the deduct may be the right method. That way, the sponsor can ensure the total amount for insurance is removed from the contractor's contract. If risk management is the primary concern, an alternate add may be an easier method.
An alternate add method often works best for CSIPs, especially if the sponsor has the ability to pass along all of the CSIP costs to the owner. If the GC or CM can include in its cost to the owner both the fixed and variable cost of the CSIP, then the contractor is no longer at risk for losing money on their program. They can simply ask that all contractors bid net of insurance and focus their efforts on a safe construction site, since all of their savings will be realized in the variance between fixed and variable cost. This is especially useful if the GC or CM has negotiated a lump sum contract and can further benefit from buying out the contracts for a cheaper price. However, if the CM or GC is forced, due to a competitive market or other constraints, to take on a large portion of the risk associated with the CSIP, then a deduct should be considered.
Obviously, there is no black and white approach to determining which method is right for your project. As we mentioned earlier, there are many variables that play a part in this decision. That's why we urge you to be open-minded about each method. Try not to begin with preconceived notions based on personal preferences. Weigh the pros and cons of each method and evaluate which one is really right for you, your client, and your project. Decide on the method prior to sending out any bid documents. Once the method is determined, make it known and clear to all contractors bidding the job so that they can understand what is expected of them and can bid the job properly. Finally, stick with your decision. All contracts and change orders should be issued in the same manner. If the contract is issued net, then all change orders should also be issued net. Thanks for taking the time to view our presentation. If you have any questions, check out our website or give us a call or email. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter.